Okay, so some more factoring of trinomials. This time, as I discussed at the end of last video, you're getting a trinomial, and it doesn't look like the ones we've factored so far. It's got three terms here, so 1, 2, 3, so it's still a trinomial, but you're used to seeing it with the squared term written first. And so a lot of people, if they look at this, they say, well, it's not the way I'm used to seeing it, I can't factor it. But, as I mentioned in the very first video, mathematicians usually write any type of polynomial in what's called descending order. In other words, the variable here that has the highest exponent on it is d squared. So that's the one you usually write first. So I write that as d squared first. Then this d has an exponent of 1 on it that's not shown, so that's the next highest. So a minus 5d is my next term. And then finally, I have the one that has no variable at all, which is the minus 24. And now, this looks like every other one that you have factored. So if you're given one that's out of order, it doesn't matter what the order is, right? If it's out of order, then you can write it in order, and it just becomes like every other trinomial that you've factored. So for instance, in this one, I'm looking for the two numbers that are going to add together to give me -5. And those same two numbers have to multiply together to give me -24. Again, you're going to list all the numbers. I'm not going to bother showing this because that's what I showed in the last video. We'll just tell you that the two numbers are -8 and +3. -8 and +3. You check to make sure. -8 plus 3 does give me -5. -8 times 3 does give me -24. So then my answer is d minus 8 onto a d plus 3. Again, remember from our last video that if I wanted to check to make sure that my answer is right, you can actually multiply this all out, and you should get your original question back. All right, one more topic we wanted to look at here. This time, my trinomial is written in order, but if you look at it here, what's different about it is this time I've got a number out in front of the squared term. Every other one that we've done so far has only had a 1, or we don't show a 1 in front of a variable. It's there, but it's not shown. So normally what we've seen is this. So you say, well, what do I do with a question like this then? What we can do for something like this is we'll look to see if the number that's in front of this variable, in front of the squared term, if it can be factored out of all three terms. And if it can be, same as what we were doing in our previous section, we say, well, we'll bring the -4 out in front, and then we'll factor it out of every one of these. So if I take -4 divided by -4, you get your +1, or 1t squared. And you don't normally show the 1. Okay, so we'll just delete that and say, instead of showing the 1 in front of t squared, I just write it like this. -16 with -4 factored out of it leaves me with a +4. In other words, -16 divided by -4 leaves you with 4, so I end up with 4t. And then 128 divided by -4. The same rules apply for division as with multiplication. I've got a positive divided by negative, so my answer is going to be negative. Right? And that's going to give you 32. Now, what's inside these brackets is something that you are used to seeing. Right? A trinomial written in descending order, and the term in front of the squared, or the coefficient in front of the squared term, is a 1, like we're used to seeing. So now I'm back to the same skill again of saying what two numbers add to give me +4, and the same two numbers have to multiply to give me -32. So I'm not going to go through the procedure again because, once again, that was covered in a previous video. but when you go through it, you should be able to figure out that the two numbers are a positive 8 and a negative 4. So we check 8 plus negative 4 is 4. 8 times negative 4 is negative 32. So then, put my negative 4 still in front. This whole thing is now replaced with t plus 8 and t minus 4. So once again, just a quick review. If you want to factor something like this, where you have a coefficient out in front of your squared term, you're just going to factor it out, and it becomes just like the first ones that we started with. Okay. So, a couple of questions for you to try here. One question for you to try. So copy this one down, and give it a try, and the same thing as before. Now that you've got this copied down, pause the video and try it, and then in the next couple of seconds here, I'll click and you can see and check to see whether your answer is right. So go ahead and pause the video while I click the answer. Okay, so there's your answer. I'll quickly go through how they got it. So you pull the negative 5 out in front. When I do that, I end up with h squared plus 4h minus, let's see here, that's going to give me 12, I believe. So what I'm looking for then are the two numbers that are going to add up to give me 4, and those same two numbers have to multiply to give me negative 12. So the only two numbers that work in that circumstance are a positive 6 and a negative 2. So then I have a negative 5, and I replace the trinomial with two binomials multiplied together, which is going to be an h plus 6 onto an h minus 2. So just a real quick how they got that answer. And so now you should be able to do the questions on your assignment that have a coefficient or a number out in front of the square term.